It was 1964 when the U.S. Surgeon General Luther Terry released his landmark report. It concluded that smoking causes illness and death. The news was not well received, especially by the big U.S. tobacco companies. In the 1960s, tobacco was one of the most profitable industries in the world, hiring celebrities and even doctors to promote the enjoyment and even safety of cigarettes.
More doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette.
The Surgeon General's report on smoking and health led the U.S. Congress to require warning labels on tobacco products, and eventually it imposed tighter restrictions on cigarette advertising. The legislation was part of one of the most successful public health campaigns in the United States. Smoking rates are now down 59%. Back in 1964, 42% of U.S. adults were smoking, compared to just 18% in 2012. And government tobacco control efforts, which have included taxes on cigarettes and bans on smoking in public spaces, have helped to save as many as 8 million lives.
In the past half century, nothing else has come close to this contribution to the health of Americans. Nothing.
But anti-smoking advocates argue there's still much more work to be done. They say the number of Americans smoking may have dropped over the decades, but globally, that's not the case. This anti-smoking campaigner says in the last century, 100 million people have died from tobacco use across the globe. And he says until big tobacco companies are restrained, that number is expected to rise to 1 billion smoking deaths this century, particularly in low and middle-income countries.
The tobacco industry is carefully, meticulously, and consciously targeting the populations in those countries. Everywhere we go, we see the kind of marketing in low and middle income countries that hasn't been allowed in the United States, Europe, and other wealthy nations for decades.
Even in the U.S., he says, more than 3,000 children still try their first cigarette every day. It's a trend he says will only be reversed through even stricter anti-smoking legislation and public health campaigns like the one started back in 1964. Kimberly Halkett, Al Jazeera, Washington.